Sure.
Hello and welcome to Clocking In. My name is Donovan, and with me today is my girlfriend Raquel Mejia. Raquel, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Raquel, and I am currently a freshman at UT majoring in biology. And I guess that's all you really need to know about me for now. And yeah, I've been living in Austin for the past couple of weeks and been really liking it. So yeah.
So she is also from Dallas, just like me, and we've actually had all of our very first jobs there, so that's what we'll be discussing today. The specific topic is first jobs, our experience on them, how we got into them, and how they shaped our views on our future endeavors in the workforce. So to start us off, our first question is, what are all the jobs you worked? If you want to start us, I know you've got like
I've got a
three separate
pretty wide
industries.
Yeah. So I think when I don't remember if I was 15 or 16. I worked as a cashier at a taco place, which was pretty interesting, especially as like such a young girl. I don't think that was definitely like the right environment to start in, but that's okay. So I worked at a taco restaurant, and then after that I worked inside of a laboratory or like within a fertility clinic. So that was pretty interesting. Definitely a more mature real world job, and that was a really great experience. And then lastly, this past summer I worked as a lifeguard, and yeah, not much to say about that part right now, but yeah. What about you?
How old were you when you got your first job?
I think I was 15.
So you were 15, and then what?
16.
And then for the fertility clinic, you were 17 going on 18.
I think it was, yeah, I think I was 15. And then for the fertility clinic, I think I was 17 when I started working, and then I was 18.
Yeah. Okay, so my first job was at 18. It was lifeguarding as well, but I also was working concurrently at the suiting job. I did that part-time. I did lifeguarding full-time, and then I switched.
Is it suiting job?
Yes.
Okay.
In retail.
It
was retail suiting.
Okay.
And then when I moved down here to Austin, I went to my second retail job, just men's retail, and I did that part-time because of school. Yeah, so that all these was in the span of like 2 years. So I worked at the suiting place at both locations, both in Dallas and down here. And so I guess technically it was 3 jobs, but it was also 4 because working in 2 separate locations is 2 different teams. So
yeah, I feel like it's a different job.
I mean, same responsibilities, but it's a different place. Yeah, so 3-ish jobs. Those are all of the jobs we worked. I wanted to move on to first job. So Raquel mentioned that she worked at a taco restaurant. Would you like to elaborate on how that all went? You were 15, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like the biggest thing I remember from that is just like being so young and not knowing like how to interact with like all of the customers. Like I think definitely from that job I learned that like whatever I ended up doing for the rest of my life, I didn't want to be like talking and interacting with people all day or like serving people. Like that definitely wasn't what I was going for. But I think I had definitely a fun time working there whenever I had like other friends working there. Because I think when you're by yourself, whatever the job may be, if you're not like totally passionate about it, and like definitely like a minimum wage job, you're not going to be passionate about it. It's not as fun. So just kind of like throwing in advice, like wherever you work, make sure that you like the people you work with. But just like talking about the job in general.
Having responsibilities, I guess.
I guess that's like a good way to explain it. Like having it be my first job, I didn't really know what to expect and like what to ask for in terms of like how much should I be paid or how much like respect should I ask for from other people. I think that's something you definitely learn with time, and I think like as someone so young, I definitely could have asked for more money. I think especially, since it was like a taco place and I speak Spanish, that's definitely like an asset to have. Even though I was so young, I feel like it would have been okay to like ask for more money or whatever. But I think it was cool that like having it be a restaurant, you also get tips. Whereas like my other jobs or whatever I got paid, that's what I had to deal with for like every hour. So I think that's kind of something fun about working at a restaurant is that you do get tipped. I think something cool about working at the taco place was just like, it was a pretty local place. Like it wasn't a chain or anything. And so we always had like a lot of locals come in, and they always had like their same orders. And so they would walk in the door and I would already start like inputting their order before they would even start talking to me. So that's something kind of fun that I remember. But then along with that, you also have like the creepy people that come in, and like as soon as you walk in, like you already know, like you have to act different and stuff like that every time, which is kind of annoying, but
that's part of like the service industry anyways, though. Like
yeah,
you know that's kind of expected.
that's true.
Okay.
You want to explain your first job?
So lifeguarding was my first job. It's been my favorite job so far, I think.
Wait, that was your first job?
Yes. Yeah, because I lifeguarded a lot. I wanted to do it my junior year, but I missed the hiring period because when I was doing my class, I had to take the ACT that weekend, and they were like, yeah, you got to reschedule your class. And by the time I took the class, they were already done hiring, and I was like, oh. So lifeguarding was my first job, and even though I was like still like a year off, like we were kind of rusty, it came back to me pretty quickly because like for those 2 weeks that I did it for, they like pounded it into you, like to figure out the information. And I was like, okay, you know, this is kind of important, even for real life, you know, if something happened. And going into the job, I didn't really know what to expect because I was like, I'm trying to think of another example of a place that does that, but like you're always in a state of fear. Like they're like, it's like those, I guess school would be a good example. It's like, oh, if you don't fail, you're not going to get into college and you're not going to succeed in life and all that kind of stuff. So it's the same with that, where it's like, oh, if someone dies, you're done, you know? But like,
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's kind of the same way. And like when I worked at the lab, like if something goes wrong, like you're literally screwed, like legally.
yeah. Okay. That
sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty scary too. But like all those jobs that are like, at least for lifeguarding, it's like you got thousands of people's lives on your hands. So like, that was hard. I mean, the first day though, like you never start outside, which is like the big park. So, since all your shadow shifts are inside, you're limited to maybe 100 people, if that. So you get like a slow introduction, and I didn't have a problem with that. The only thing really is monotony. You know, you're sitting there for 15 minutes at a time, rotating and whatever. So, literally that was like the hardest part, was just getting over the monotony, not like wanting to fall asleep. So, but yeah, going outside, I guess things that the job taught me, since I had not worked in like retail at this point, I knew that this would be good building block because you're always with patrons, you're talking to patrons, you need to like convey messages to them, even though it's a different sense, like you're the authority there. Mm-hmm. It's still good to have that kind of like retail voice, oh, hi, welcome in, you know, like that kind of thing. You still have to have that tone of voice to them, like to convey rules or whatever they have questions about, that kind of stuff. So doing that was pretty cool, kind of building that sort of repertoire, and actually using it later. I was like, oh shoot, this actually came in handy. So
yeah, I think it's definitely nicer to be able to be in that like position of authority.
Yeah.
Whereas like when you're a cashier, it's like, oh, like how can I help
like
you?
Customer's
like,
always right. But here it's like, oh, you want to save your kid? Go ahead, you know.
You want shredded cheese?
Yeah, so I wasn't scared, just nervous. And so after that first summer, I was like, you know, this is a pretty easy job. Once you like get the hang of it, you know what you're doing. And like, even though you're not always, I mean, we did practice our skills every week, but you're not always like using your skills. So that's the only thing I was like worried about. I was like, oh, what happens if something happens and I don't know which thing to use, you know? Mm-hmm. But anyways, yeah, that was,
which protocol did
yeah, basically. And so it was a pretty uneventful summer, except for one where we had the kid go passive, which was scary, but luckily it wasn't my save. So, yeah, that job taught me basically, be alert. You know, it's a service job. You have to be nice to people. And I mean, I was paid well enough that I didn't feel like I was like, oh, I don't care, you know, that kind of thing, like that a lot of retail jobs have.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you said you worked this job at the same time as the suit job, right?
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that. Yeah. So, I only worked my other job on the weekends. So I was working full time Sunday through Thursday, and then Sunday through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was working my other job. And
so the lifeguard, you're lifeguarding, and then suit job were both during the summer, and then my cashier job was also during the summer. Just to like put that into perspective.
Yeah, these are like summer jobs,
yeah.
Summer like seasonal full-time jobs. Yeah. And so I remember, I think I started that like a week or two before lifeguarding, but because I was doing lifeguarding more, I felt like that was more like my first job, you know? Mm-hmm. And when I got into that job, it was really weird because like at this point I was always like dressing up, but like working in that industry was kind of different because you're trying to sell why you should look like that, not people coming in already sometimes wanting to buy a suit. You know, it was more like selling the idea of wanting to buy a suit. And even though we did have those people that were like, I'm here to buy a suit, there was a lot of people that were just destination walkers that were like, oh, I'm just looking, you know, kind of. Yeah. And so like, even though I wasn't working on commissions, I helped my coworkers like get their commissions. And so even on top of that, it wasn't a job that let me be like a sales associate. So I didn't have that opportunity to do it because I was like, I was fixed. But I did enjoy it for the most part. Where I was located was really nice. You know where it is. It's a pretty cool place to see like cool cars and kind of expensive food though. But I enjoyed it, and that definitely taught me more patience because not only was I working with like a lot of like older people, but like big money people. And I think one time we had like this like huge CEO guy from like a California business come in, and he was just like, I mean, he was a casual dude. He was just wearing like a polo and shorts, but he was like, I think he ended up buying like 3 or 4 suits. And so like the dudes selling were like, yo, this guy's got some money. Yeah. So it's only scary like having to treat everyone the same, but everyone's different.
Yeah, because like the location of the shop, there's a lot of like high traffic with people that are like super wealthy and stuff. So knowing that at any second one of them could walk in and talk to you, it's got to be on your game.
Yeah. How do you convey someone a higher tier that they may not need but want? Because like I'm trying to get my coworkers' commissions up, make the store look better, and like just overall have like a better experience for them. But like all the other stuff we had to sell, it's like it's a little bit at a higher price point for someone who's just out of college looking for their first suit to go into a job. But those people that are already established, it's a little easier because they have a little bit more income, and they're like, okay, you know, I can invest in something now. I know it'll pay back kind of like later. And I don't know, switching from a demographic of like 12-year-olds all the way up to 40 to 60-year-olds, that's like big switch. And so since I was working with both types of people, I was able to work a lot on like just social skills, working with other people outside of my normal age range, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty fun.
Definitely different.
I mean, you did too with the skills, though, when you led to the lab. I mean, you're working with people like really established in that field. Yeah. What I want to lead to in the next part is like, what did it teach you? So I mentioned like the social skills, the team building, that kind of stuff. But like, what do you think your second job? Because obviously you're not going to learn too much from a taco shop, but I mean, you learn some skills. But like, what did your jobs teach you, since these are just first jobs?
Well, so my lab job started out as an internship, I would call it, or like mentorship throughout the school year, and I would just go in and like shadow my mentor in the lab and see what they did back there, and that was like a really cool experience. And then around spring of that school year, he asked me if I wanted to go in and work throughout the summer. And basically, since I already had like so much background knowledge in the field itself, he was like, hey, since you already like have all this jargon and stuff, do you want to kind of be like our database person and like put in all of our information on the computer so that, you know, like the professionals can actually go in and like do their job and they don't have to worry about like all the tech stuff. So basically they just called in like a young person to do their tech stuff because they're kind of slow at it, but that's okay. So I feel like the biggest thing that I learned from that, I kind of mentioned that earlier, is just like the best part of a job is being around people that you enjoy being around. And I feel like throughout, like whenever I would go into shadow earlier in the year, I had a really good time because I was always around my coworkers, and they would teach me so much about the field, and they were all super like educated, and it was just like constant learning. But during the summer, just basically what my job involved was sitting at a computer all day, putting data in a spreadsheet, and that was definitely like not interacting with anyone. And I think working as a cashier, I was like, okay, I don't want to be around people all the time. But then like having the actual like database job, I was like, okay, well, being in solitude for 8 hours a day is probably not what I want to do either. So I feel like I need more of a middle ground. I don't know if I found that yet, but yeah, I feel like that would be the biggest thing that I learned, is just like finding the right work environment for you.
Yeah, I mean, like with the lifeguarding, we got to be with people that were pretty much with us however long you were in that school district, you know, and just being with like all these new people, it's like, whoa, you know, you get to see different perspectives and like we all had like the same experiences, but in different perspectives. But having that like more casual environment versus more serious professional environment, it's cool just to see like different sides of people, you know.
I feel like I definitely prefer the professional environment. Like lifeguarding for me didn't cut
I think
it.
it's just you're just young right now, or just young right now, because it's like once you're in the professional environment for the rest of your life, you're like, oh, I'm so bored of being hello, sir.
Well, I don't know. I feel like just in general, lifeguarding just kind of felt like it was like high school all over again. And then it was just like being around kids all the time. It didn't seem like a job where like people were professional and trying to focus on, you know, like performing at, like to the best of their abilities and like providing good customer service. It just literally just felt like high school and drama. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think in that sense, I would prefer like a professional job with people that like know what they're doing in the field, which is hard to find as like an opening starter job or whatever. But if you can, I would aim towards that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so some real quick background context. If you haven't noticed, I'm definitely a lot more of an extrovert. I think that plays into why I just enjoy being around people in the first place as much. But I think I kind of forced Raquel into the lifeguarding job, but I think putting her in that environment was pretty fun for a while because she got to meet some new people. And I don't know, it was just fun. It was fun to see like her in a different environment than just band, because that's kind of how we met. So like it was just really fun seeing her with like all these new people that like we never would have, or at least she never would have.
Yeah, I would have never talked to any of this.
Exactly, so but like, I mean, do you feel like you made friends with at least any of them? I mean, what about the group that we were with at the end? You know, with like the Olive Garden group.
I mean, I feel like if I made friends with like the band kids.
There was like 4 though.
Yeah, I made like 4 friends.
You don't think the Olive Garden group was your friends?
Yeah, they're my friends. I hope you're watching this.
Well, for all of our lifeguard homies out there, if you end up watching this, I love you. Raquel loves some of you.
Good.
To our aquatics managers, Sadids, and then our aquatic superintendent, hello.
But I guess the point you were trying to make is just like knowing what qualities you have as a person, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, in between, whether you like being around like people older than you, or whether you like being around people younger than you to be able to teach them whatever. Just know what kind of work environment matches up with your personality, so you're not like stuck in between. Because like as soon as you asked me to like join the lifeguarding team or whatever, I knew that was not going to be like the right environment for me, I guess. Well, I don't know. I was kind of in between because I was like, well, I'm going to be sitting on stand all day by myself, so it can't be that bad. Like, not going to lie, that didn't bother me. I kind of
like it did. You're always like, oh, I'm always on edge.
Well, it's nice to just be able to like sit and think, even though, I don't know.
Except
it's not like passive thinking though, because you're like actively.
Except our one chick that's like, focused. Do you ever run out of thoughts?
Oh gosh. I was gonna make a bad joke, but we're just gonna move past that. What was I saying?
Jason says you have a very nice podcast voice.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Oh my gosh, so self-conscious.
Yeah. So
wait, we were talking about
like what environment you put. Oh, yeah.
Oh fuck, what was I talking about?
Like what environment you put in, like.
Oh yeah. Okay, so when you were like, oh, come lifeguard with me or whatever, I didn't know because like you told me a lot about, because you worked the previous year, about like how like cliquey it was and how like y'all would always go out every weekend and like what y'all like talked about during breaks and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's the vibe for me, but just gave it a shot, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I know you didn't like fully enjoy it, but
I mean, you got to go for it to see if you.
Yeah.
If you.
And we got paid well.
Yeah.
For what it was.
Yeah.
I think
I could have gotten paid more because I.
Yeah, but you didn't. So.
Okay.
So let's see. We talked about what you think, what it taught. Ooh, so best and worst memories of a job. I can't really say I have like. Yeah, I have bad memories, but there's nothing like funny bad. You know, that's like that. That's like memorable, I guess. So I mean, you can start us if you have any.
I guess like a lot of the stuff in the lab for me. So basically, let me explain more of like what the lab is. since I keep saying the lab. So basically it's a fertility clinic where people in the lab take like egg and sperm and they make babies. And it's like a field that has a lot of like legal issues tied to it, because obviously if you mix up like someone's kid, that could be like really bad. And so everything I'm dealing with and putting into the system is like super sensitive information, like super secret. Like nothing can get mixed up or else like someone's getting sued basically. And so I think a lot of my time working was just like me sometimes making mistakes and then having to like figure out how to undo it before anyone else found out, and I like got into super big trouble. So I feel like that's some of my worst memories. It was just like super scary whenever you're like going down Excel, blah, 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 and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I messed this up. And then you got to start like all the way back at the beginning to find where your error is, or else someone's going to freaking come after you. But I think that's like a good experience in a way to just like put you in your place sometimes. Mm-hmm. What else? What other bad experience? You share a bad experience.
I think working at the second retail job, again, monotony was a huge thing. Our store was what's called a destination spot, basically where people know if people shop at the overall store, they know what our store is about, and they'll go there and they'll shop like automatically. They know what the brand is already, and we don't have to introduce ourselves. So that was definitely beneficial when people were coming in and we had to sell to them. They're like, oh, I already know, like, what's up? Just like, show me what's new, show me what's cool, that kind of stuff. So because of that, we only had a few people come in, and I say a few as in like, it's not just like some, what's it called? Like Old Navy. It's not just Old Navy. We just like Black Friday rush and everyone's just waiting in line for 30, 45 minutes versus having stuff to do when we're not doing anything. Because like you would sometimes have one person come every 3-4 hours. Mm-hmm. And then at the other end of the spectrum where you have one person coming in every like 3-4 minutes. But explaining both to the new people how the system worked versus
like new customers.
Yeah. To a new customer versus like having to sell someone at the same time. That's really hard because you have to switch back and forth really quickly. Mm-hmm. You couldn't stick with just one person, but you also didn't want to risk both sales. So if you felt like the first guy was going to leave because you were giving more time to the new person having to explain all this stuff.
Did you get paid on commission?
No. But I was only working part-time, so it never was huge, but it was very nice because like I think some of my paychecks would only be about $350, $400, and then with the bonuses, I think the highest I got was like $600, and I was like, ooh. And like, even though I don't have any bills to pay, I was still spending money on like food, whatever I wanted to like buy. So it's just nice to have that income. But like the worst part that I was talking about was just like having to switch and deal with all these different types of people sometimes was very bad, just because not everyone works in retail. Not everyone understands what it's like. Mm-hmm. So those like less apathetic people are definitely harder to work with.
This is kind of random, but do you like work? Would you prefer to work full-time, like during the summer, or work a part-time job during school?
Well,
or neither.
I mean, during school, there's two things going on if I was doing a part-time job. That's the only thing I didn't like was because granted, I only worked weekends, but like, let's just say I had a project due Monday and I wasn't able to work with it too much during the week. The weekend's the only time I have to have left to work on that project. So having to do part-time through the school sometimes meant I had to divert some of my efforts from school to work. Mm-hmm. So versus during the summer when I have like no responsibilities just to work, I feel like there's more freedom in the sense that I don't have another thing to think about. I felt like that this summer was pretty nice because like I didn't have to worry about school. I was just worrying about chilling with my bros and all that kind of stuff. Like, going to freaking Turner Falls, that kind of stuff. Like just working in full-time during the summer, you're able to do other stuff because there's nothing else you have to do. I mean, what would you do?
I don't know. I think it just hits you hard whenever you work full-time. It's like, oh, this is what it's like to be an adult, and working is your life, like your responsibility.
Yeah, it's definitely like, especially when you do like the long days where it's just like so much stuff happens, 8 hours, or I guess almost close to 9 because of like the cleanup times. Mm-hmm. It hits you, especially. I mean, you're not even going to be outside for any other job really, so it's not going to take that much more out of you. Mm-hmm. versus sitting down at a desk job all day.
That's pretty brutal too, though.
But yeah, you don't have
Like,
the sun beating down on you. That's what I'm saying. Like all those
you don't have any
external
light.
factors.
Or I didn't have any light in my freaking room. It was just like LED lights beaming on me the entire day.
But you were cold all day versus
Yeah.
getting sunburnt, having future skin cancer.
I'd probably rather be inside
Yeah.
than be outside. But lifeguarding's like the only job where you have to be outside. So it's
Yeah,
not really
I need like a combo of both. Like traveling's pretty cool, but
oh yeah, for sure.
yeah.
But like if I had to choose, like
So you would do part time then
to
not become an adult.
yeah, to not face the reality of having to work for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, what about best parts of the job?
Oh,
I think so. Working the first retail job, suiting, was just being able to experience all the different types of people on like the opposite spectrum of dealing with people that being apathetic, people that just have a lot of experiences. So with a lot of those like really established people in their fields, they had a lot of like, I don't want to say networking, but just like stuff to talk about. So there would be times where it'd be like, at this time we closed at like 9 on the weekends. So I would work like 11-hour days, and by 7 o'clock my feet are killing me and I just want to sit down. And we'd have like maybe a few people in there, but then like this one guy would come in and he'd tell us like he'd be shopping, but then eventually we'd get to the repertoire where he's like talking about his life experiences, and you get in the whole thing about how like his dad was like a farmer and then he was the first one to get to college, that kind of stuff. And then he's like, yeah, now I basically run like a startup in Silicon Valley.
And they're like, actually, I don't want the suit. And then they leave,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Unfortunately, that's the bad part of it, is that sometimes you talk too much and then they're like, why am I even in here again? Okay, bye.
yeah.
But like you get to hear so much stuff like that. And another one of mine, he created a startup and found an investor through a customer who came by, but he was like from like out of state. So like they met.
It's kind of like subtle networking if
Yeah.
you're lucky.
You always have to do networking and commission-based stuff like that because you need the clientele. But yeah, just being able to like do that subtle networking, like you called it, and listening to so many people's experiences, you get to have like a really broad worldview. You see like how people were just experience the world themselves. So I think that's a pretty cool aspect of working in jobs like that, where it's a little bit more one-on-one, that kind of stuff.
My answer isn't as deep. I think when I was a cashier, I feel like the best part about it was like at the end of the day, we'd get to take home food. That was pretty nice, not gonna lie.
Dude, having any free foods, like...
Yeah, literally. And it was like, low-key, like the food there's pretty good. It's like one of my favorite places to eat. So when they were like, yeah, you can take it home, I was like, oh, shit. So I did that a lot for sure. That's probably one of my favorite memories, is just like getting to walk back home. Because it was like right next to my house.
Yeah.
And I was really little, so I couldn't drive yet. Just like walking back with my little quesadillas. That was pretty fun. Favorite part of like working at the lab? I feel like the best part is just like being around such educated people all the time, and they're like always like, their knowledge is always like rubbing off on you, and you just feel like you're like growing as an intellectual every day. As cheesy as that sounds, I think that was like a really cool work environment, and I'd love to be able to work there again one day. I think that'd be really cool. And then
and you had like a really cool area around you too, because you were next to the...
Oh yeah, it was like around the Star and stuff, and like our boss would like take us out to eat.
That's
all
nice.
the time
In his nice car and everything.
I really enjoyed that job. And then lifeguarding, my favorite moments. I really like kids, so I thought it was really fun to just like whenever we got to be on like the little play structures, getting to talk to like little kids or seeing like the regulars or whatever. Just like some of the kids, it's like, you're a little bee. But like some of them are like super cute, like the little Russian little Russian boys that go to Wolga. I like try to talk to them every time I see them. They're so cute. So that was probably my favorite part of lifeguarding. It's just like being able to be nice to little kids.
Well, that's funny because like it's the opposite for me. I hate kids. I hate the kids. So for the best part for me with the lifeguarding was just being able to be so like casual with everyone, being able to just talk with everyone again, because like the point of the job is just to make sure everyone's safe. So you're not really doing anything, It's the same as like security guards.
It's all preventative.
Yeah. It's a proactive, So like you're not doing a job unless you're doing the job at the moment. So just...
See, I feel like I'm the opposite. I don't like how like casual and laid back it was.
But yeah, doing like the the best part about lifeguarding for me was just being with people outside of our high school's circle, you know, because you got to just meet so many people, and like you get to make different types of friends, you know, like doing all these things with different people, just having that opportunity to like be with other cool people is just kind of just like interesting, you know. That's my favorite part of the job, just being with new people, I guess. Yeah, so now that we've seen like what we felt about our first jobs, how does that change your initial view on jobs for like your future endeavors and like your first like real job kind of thing? You know, how has your first jobs prepared you for that?
I feel like I definitely realized that I don't like working for people. Or I guess another way to say that would be like I'm really picky in like who I'm like willing to respond to and like who I respect like as a boss, I guess. And so I think that would be something that I would really look for in a job, because like obviously I'm going to have to work for someone, whoever that may be, but like I feel like I really need to look into whoever's running like the company or whatever, and make sure that their standards like match up with my standards. As like backwards and like cocky as that sounds, like I want to be able to respect the person I'm working for and the environment that I'm in. So I think that's the biggest thing I learned, because I just really hate like the concept of working for someone, but like even more working for them and like not respecting their ideals and like their work ethic or how they run things. Yeah, I feel like that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I definitely felt that a few times where my managers would do like questionable things, and I'm just like, if I was in this position, how would I want someone below me to see me, you know? And definitely not in like that weird shady area. And so I was like, why do I work for this company that I know is just like not morally right? And I think that's more of like a Gen Z mindset, you know, because like the previous generations would have just been like, who I work for is who I work for, and it's not unless it's affecting me, you know. And I mean, it's totally different now. Like if you don't respect the people you work for, you're not going to want to do the work. So I think having that mindset's bettering for our society, but like definitely a more Gen Z thing.
I guess something else that I would look for in a future job is like a company that like has a really flexible mindset in how they run things. Like at the lab, I know my boss was like, it's obviously like I said earlier, like a super rigid field in terms of like legal things and how things need to be run. But within that, like despite that, whenever I would give him input on how we could like improve how things were run or whatever, he'd always take the time to listen to what I say. And knowing that I was just like a younger person that's more knowledgeable with like technology and stuff, whenever I had any suggestions to make on how they could like improve their workflow or whatever, he'd always take the time to listen. So I think that's really good to look for a place that like takes into account like new ideas and is okay with flexibility and listening to their workers.
Yeah, and I remember watching like a College Humor skit about that. They were talking about like, they're like, oh, you know, you could get paid more, but like we got a pool table. Like some people are like capitalizing on that idea that we want flexibility, but then they're like, but we've got a chill area. We got free snacks. Like they're trying to use that as an advantage to pay people less. And by offering us these amenities, they don't have to pay us, you know, or pay us more. So not because of like the jobs that we've worked so far, I kind of know what I want in a job. And I think that's definitely something you need before going into a real job. Because if you go in and you spitball like random numbers and you have no experience, they're going to be like, dude, what are you doing? You're just like messing around with us, you know? But like if I was to go into like automotive business and I was like, this is like what I want to get paid. And they're like, but you have no experience. It's like, I have like relevant knowledge. I have relevant skills that can lead me to get to that experience. Like that's what this job's for. It's to build that experience. And I think, you know, your first jobs don't have to do anything to do with what you want to do, but like building those skills to get those experiences is definitely important.
Like you said, it doesn't really matter like what your first couple of jobs are, because like they're not going to be relevant to like your final field or whatever. Like if you want to be a doctor, like your first job doesn't need to be working like night shifts out wherever. I was just going to say like, even though these jobs aren't like as important as like a real salary job or whatever, take the time to always like be on your A game and be respectful. And let your supervisors know that you're like really hardworking, because you never know when you need like a letter of rec from those people, or when those people could hook you up with your next job, just because they know like your attitude and your work ethic. So don't be afraid to like stay 10 minutes late or whatever, because like that's what's going to get you places. It's who you know, and it's what those people know about you, not so much like your resume and like what jobs you've worked in or whatever.
Quick question from Jason. He goes, what were you two looking for when getting your first job?
Well, I was 15 or 16, I don't remember, and I didn't have a car, so I was just looking for something like nearby that I could walk to and make money during the summer.
So you just wanted to have like money.
Yeah, I just wanted money because I was like young. I don't know. I just wanted fun money. I didn't even have a direct deposit account. Like I remember I got like checks and I would just like cash them out, and I would just have like a drawer full of cash in my room. Like I literally didn't even have a bank account. So that wasn't like a really deep answer for what I was looking for in my first job.
For me, but I wanted to spend it on college, like for
because you were going into college.
But I was like,
that's not enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally made like $7,500.
Really?
Yeah, because I was working 2 jobs.
Holy, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll have to check like the pay stub or something, but it was definitely mostly for spending money, because like a lot of people that we knew actually worked at least between 15 and 17, but I didn't have my first job till 18. So up until that point, I was either asking my parents if they could buy me something or not buying anything at all. And so having that freedom to buy it myself, it was a lot more freeing, I think, having that more financial independence, just to like not have to ask your mom to buy Halo 5, whatever. And they're like,
well, because my family's pretty low income, so I never ask my parents for anything because I know they don't need to be like spending money on me or whatever. So that was definitely a big reason for me working, is just like not feeling like a burden for like asking for things, even though I never asked for things. But it was just like oh, like I want a new shirt or whatever, like oh, like I can go buy a new shirt, or my friends are going to Brahms, like I can go to Brahms too, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it was kind of the same with like my mom, but like with my dad, I only asked for the stuff that was very frequent. Like anytime my mom wanted to buy clothes, she was the one that we did it with, unless like my dad specifically wanted to take us out to buy clothes. And so she was like, if I ever wanted anything, like, I don't know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like, I guess like school supplies is the first thing, because I remember this happening with my brother and sister. She was like, oh yeah, just like ask your dad, and he was totally fine with it. It's just like, but it was funny always asking which parent for like what things,
for different
kind of things, like having the money now, I didn't have to ask either of them. Mm-hmm. But then they'd be like, because like when I built my computer, my dad didn't even ask me how much I spent on it, but then he like criticized me. He's like, oh, you only bought this much RAM?
Yeah,
I was like, bruh, like, okay, you buy I think it was like $400 for the next kit up. And I was like, so I don't know, that's kind of funny, that now that I spent, like, that was like my first kind of big purchase, I guess. He was like, oh, that's all you spent? I don't know. So I hope, Jason, that answered your question. We just really wanted spending money.
Were your parents okay with you working at first?
I
guess you were old.
Well, so okay. So that's another, I guess that's an interesting question. So I wanted a job my sophomore year because I wanted to buy a new trombone. And I was going to do it with the assistance of my dad, because obviously I couldn't buy it, but I could he could buy it for me and I could pay him back or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at trombones with my mom, because I think even she even wanted to help me with that. And I think by the time we left, when we got home, she's like, you know what, I changed my mind. I want you to get a job before I buy this. And I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. Like I wasn't doing anything else besides like band, that kind of stuff, but I could figure out a way around it. And I never found a job because I think at that point it was already summer and it was too late to look for one. Mm-hmm. I think, and then I didn't want to also leave because of band, And then junior year rolls around, and I think the same thing happened, but instead it was for classes. They were just like, oh, I don't want you taking away from class, because they wanted my grades to stay up. So they wanted me to work, but they wouldn't let me work, Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I was always in this conflict of like, I want money, but I can't work for money, because like mm-hmm. all I did was like chores around the house, like mowing lawns or stuff like that. And I wanted to do mowing lawns because I've been doing that for like, I think I was 10 when I first started mowing my dad's lawn. But yeah, always having that conflict of like, well, I could do this, but I don't have money for it. But do I really want to ask my parents for the money to do it? So that kind of made me mad. But like, it never was like too big of a problem. And once I became 18, I was like, well, I can't really do much about it anymore. So.
Yeah.
I mean, what about you? They let you work, right? I mean,
they didn't really want me to work. They're like, oh, well, like, don't worry, like, we can pay for your stuff. But, like, deep down, you know, like, they're not, like, you don't want to put that, like, strain on them or whatever, knowing that they have to pay for other things. So I was like, nope, it's like, right across the street. Like, don't worry about it. I'll be okay or whatever. And, like, I told them that, like, I had other friends working at, like, the taco place or whatever. So then they're like, okay, that's fine or whatever.
Yeah, you got lucky that it was that close. I couldn't see a job that I wanted that was that close because I did not want to work in food.
Honestly?
I mean, cashiering, how much did you actually work in the line?
I mean, sometimes I'd get, like, sometimes I'd serve drinks even though I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was a fun part of the job. I don't know, I'd serve, like, chips and queso. That was, like, the closest I got to.
Yeah, so you didn't work in food, but, like, being, like, a line cook or something, like, I can't imagine myself doing all the cleaning for that stuff, like.
I feel like cleaning in restaurants is just brutal.
Yeah.
You just rather not know what goes on.
Cleaning at our park was pretty brutal too.
Yeah, anywhere.
Oh, he's asking advice. He says, how about advice? I don't know. Advice for people getting a first job?
Don't settle with getting underpaid even though it's your first job. Especially if you're like young, I think, and a girl. Yeah, just don't settle for getting underpaid. And then don't be super picky about your first job, I guess. Just, like, do a really good job at it. Like, it's fine. Like, be humble about it. You're just trying to make money. Like, you'll get to where you need to get as long as, like you said earlier, you show that you have the right qualities within that job, and those skills will apply later on in a more applicable sense to your career. Yeah.
I think that works pretty well. I mean, I would say the same thing except for when you mean the picky part, you mean the picky part about the job you're already working?
I guess don't be like, oh, like, I never want to work minimum wage. Like, no, you got to start somewhere. Like, I mean, like, maybe you'll go right into, like, a high-paying internship or blah, 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 but, like, good for you. Like, that's awesome. But for most people, like, your first job's going to be, like, within 8 to 13 range, not even 10.
Yeah.
So just, like, be okay with that. It's part of the process. Don't be picky about, like, not wanting to be humble about it, I guess. Like, I'm too good to work for this job.
Yeah.
I'm only going to work when I'm a doctor, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Because I know people.
Yeah. So. I guess also a thing to add on that is don't also rush into working if you don't have to. Because if you don't feel like you're ready for it or it'll be too much on you, like additional stress for work, sports, whatever you're in, school, I'm in school, don't force yourself into, like, the working place because it's a lot. It can be a lot. Even though my job was definitely not high stress for my second retail job, it just felt like sometimes they wanted me to put in more than what they were asking for. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely felt that was, like, the underlying thing when doing the interview. That he was like, he asked me, do I go above and beyond? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I want to make sure that they know I care about my job. But I felt like a lot of times they were like, oh, if you don't go above and beyond, you're doing mediocre. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not showing enough effort for this team. And
I guess just TLDR, it's all about effort with your bosses, not so much like what the job actually entails or like what you're actually doing in the job. It's just about your effort.
Yeah, definitely. If you can put in as much effort as you're able to, then they should appreciate what you're doing. And if you don't,
because I know, like, one of my friends, I think she works at, like, a pizza place or something, and she's been working there for like since high school started, and now she's, like, the manager of a place, and she's, like, 18 or something. So, like, nice. It doesn't matter where you work, but, like, even though, like, you would think it's not impressive to have, like, a pizza place on your resume, to be able to say you were, like, the manager and you have these leadership skills wherever that may be, that's way more impressive than saying that you were, like, I don't know, just trying to think of like a low position at, like, an impressive place, I guess. So,
yeah, because that brings us back to that point that I was saying, like, if you're getting a job in your actual relevant field, if you have those skills that you built up over the years, exactly, working at the same job, same place, but different jobs, working up the chain, they know that like you're loyal, you got those skills that you built up for, whatever. So like, I think to answer part of Jason's question about what to look out for is like, they want to see that you're in it for the long run, but they understand that other priorities happen. And if they can't comply or understand with that, then that's not a job that you should take. Just because your own priorities come first. You're going out there looking for stuff. They're looking for people to come to them. There should be like a compromise there. Mm-hmm. Another part of the thing he asked is like retail, fast food pay, what not to look out for.
Personally, I think if you're working somewhere that gets tipped, I don't like the concept of like shared tips. I think that really bothers me because I think, when you're working up front and you're the one that's talking to people and you put so much effort into like making sure you get their order right and fast and you're friendly when like it's not easy to be nice to people. I feel like genuinely, and like I tried like really hard and like you see them write down like $4 as a tip or whatever. It's like, yes, like they tipped me $4. And then it's like at the end of the day, like everyone gets that $4. I don't know. I feel like or just food places. I would try to work somewhere where like you get to keep all of your tips.
Yeah, it's a big incentive.
If you're good at your job, do that. If you're not good at your job, then go somewhere where you get shared tips and you can just leech off of.
And then also one thing I wanted to mention out is if it's a first job, it doesn't even have to be a job, but an internship. But I feel like that's like a different point for a different day because if it's an internship, you're doing like relevant experiences towards a job. But like that's definitely something to look out for.
Lab started out as an internship, just shadowing, and then eventually he's like saw the qualities that I had, and he's like, hey, like I can't let you actually do things because you don't have a degree, but here like I can open a spot for you here because he really valued my like the time that I was putting in. So
internships are definitely something to look out for because even though sometimes you give up pay, you get relevant experience. So. Thank you, Raquel, for sharing your thoughts and opinions with me today. Thanks for everyone, especially Jason, for asking relevant questions.
Our loyal viewer.
I hope some of y'all find this helpful for finding your own job, internship, whatever your endeavors are. Thanks for listening in. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye, and until next time,
Yeah, bye, guys.
It's not about personality matrixels and charts. It's all about the bumps in your heart.